Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to yet another episode of Gridiron Weekly. I may look like I'm flying solo right now because I am. My two cohorts are otherwise engaged, but we may have some special guests along the way. If not, you're going to be stuck with me for about 45 minutes to an hour. It's going to be fantastic. Trust me, you're going to have a blast. So last show we talked about the AFC East. This one we're probably going to do the NFC East, but we're also going to talk a little college football here, right? So we have all the pro days coming up. And keep the comments coming because we're going to have to engage in comments so you don't have to listen to me talk the whole time. But we have the College Pro Day coming up, and a lot of coaches don't like them because it's more time they have to spend away from the overall team and more time that they have to spend traveling to go and see these players. And also the fact that they're absolutely, completely scripted. And some of the players say they want to do that. You know, throwers don't throw sometimes at the draft or the combine because they want to showcase players who weren't invited to the combine because it's a finite number that is invited to the combine. So they want to help their other players show off. It could be BS, might not be BS, but I'm sure that some players have come through the draft that way, you know, as catching balls from, say, a Mendoza or somebody else like that. But it's all, you know, more traveling, which, you know, a lot of people don't like it. You hear it on Sirius XM NFL radio. They don't like it a lot. Good evening and howdy. What's up, Michael? Good to have you, brother. So some teams like it. Some people don't like it. The fact that it's scripted, and the most hilarious part is that they give out statistics for these quarterbacks. You're throwing against air. If you're not, you know, 50 for 50 or whatever, if you're missing balls there, you're in trouble, you know, because that's not a good sign to have that there, to miss balls when you're throwing against air. But I guess the overall, you know, the times are going to be different. Some tracks are quicker than others. So it's really, I don't know if you put too much weight in it, but some do, some don't. And we'll see how they go. There's a bunch of them coming up as we're watching live NFL draft stuff. You know, the most anticipated ones, I think, are the Ohio State, the Indianas of the world, where they have tons and tons of talent. And the other teams that made it far into the draft, say your Miamis with Messidor and Bain, having them there as well. So it's going to be interesting as they come through. Not sure you're going to be getting anything with that, but they do it for a reason. So the reason must be some coaches like it, some owners like it, some GMs like it, some scouts like it. So we'll see how that goes. Secondary, after all that's done, after all the pro days are done, it's time for spring games, right? Spring games, and I understand, you know, Colorado and Deion Sanders, they've been trying to do a joint spring game for 2.5 years now. They keep petitioning the NCAA. I think that would be so much more interesting. And if the NCAA wants to showcase talent and make more money, they would make gobs of cash to have those, you know, integrated with another team. But they're kind of hard to read because if you come out of that, you know, and the score's 50-50 or something obnoxious like that, how can you tell if anybody's good? If A's are playing A's and B's are playing B's, or A's are playing B's and B's are playing A's, how can you tell where your talent is and how can you evaluate that? I think they do it more for the practice time and more for those kids that come out of high school that bypass their, you know, that have enough credits to graduate in January, in December, and then they come to the school in January and they start their collegiate career then because it gives them a leg up insofar as the practice in the spring will lead into the practices in the fall, and that'll give them a chance to understand what college football is like, get used to the speed, get used to the terminology, the coaches, you know, and all the tendencies they have. So I think that's, you know, it's going to be great for those type of organizations, but I don't know if you can tell very much out of it. For me, it's just a way to watch football. But we have spring football. You have the Canadian Football League. You have USFL. USL, the combination of USFL and XFL. So there is some stuff to watch. I encourage everybody who's a football fan to watch because it's good stuff. But as we roll along, you know, I don't think that you're going to be able to tell. I don't think they even do a power rankings after the spring games, which I would find to be odd. I mean, I'm sure people are going to pack to see LSU and to see Lane Kiffin's offense. People always pack Alabama, Ohio State gets 70, 80,000 people. You know, so, I mean, they do garner a lot of people. So, and people just are starved for football, which is wild, that they just will go to anything called football they'll go to. But anyway, we're going to move on now to our NFL portion of the show. So last week we did focused on the AFC East. So now we're going to focus on the NFC East. But we did have a couple signings today. Joe Flacco decided to stay in Cincinnati, which, I mean, if you're a team that needs an experienced quarterback, not sure why you wouldn't go with Joe Flacco. I mean, he knows how to win. You know, he's not terribly dangerous with the ball, but the guy knows how to win, point blank. You know, so it's always interesting to see where he lands because he's going to make a name for himself, and he's going to, he's going to be able to be a solid backup for you. He's a mentor. He still throws the ball well. Doesn't move as well as he did, but he still can throw the ball. And it was proven in Cleveland. It was proven, when Joe Burrow went down, their backup went down. They needed somebody there, and there was Flacco to step up again, and try to keep them relevant until Burrow got back. But he signed there. I know Washington made a signing. A couple other teams. Philadelphia made their official trade for Andy Dalton. He passed his physical, so now he's officially with the Eagles. They have Tanner McKee, and they have other people there that are making it, interesting to see what they're going to do. As I was talking to Mike, our producer off air, he was talking about he has a feeling 30 days from now when the draft begins here in Pittsburgh, PA, that something's going to happen. And I agree with him because I think some similar as Tennessee did it with A.J. Brown in that draft when they sent him to Philly for picks. I think the same thing's going to happen. I think it's going to be lower in the rounds, though. I would say somewhere between 25 and 32 because those picks are sometimes considered to be, especially the 31 and 32 or, people love to get in there because they gain that control over that player for an extra year with the fifth-year option. However, I think some of those teams down there are a little starved for wideouts, and I think they're going to find a place to go and find, you look down there, you have New England and you have Seattle. They're pretty much set with JSN, who just got paid record pay. But you look at New England, right? New England did get Romeo Dobbs. But I really think that, if New England came up with, say, a second, I'm trying to see what they're going to pick in the second round. They come up and they give that one and maybe they flip picks in the 6th and 7th rounds. I think New England would take him. He was drafted by, his former coaches there, Mike Vrabel. And that would just be another dynamic piece for Mr. Drake May, which I think would be huge for them up there. I mean, that you counter what Buffalo did with getting Chicago to trade. So I think that's going to be an interesting time to watch. And it's going to be toward the end of the drafts. So it's going to be good. And, the other positive thing about the draft is they shortened it. No longer is it 10 minutes. It's now 8-minute in between picks. So essentially you take off 64 minutes, which is fantastic because it kind of drones on there toward the end. People lose interest and the energy is really not there. So having that, condensed time is also going to add for a lot of drama when it comes to trades. I don't know if you guys remember out there in the audience, if you guys remember when Detroit missed a couple picks, like 2 years in a row where they got bypassed, which is wild. And they, somebody went up and picked and they finally sent their pick in. But, with 8 minutes to go in these rounds, in the first round, it's going to be unbelievable. It truly is because you really don't know what's going to happen. So we're going to start we're going to look just a quick snapshot at the draft, right? So we know, obviously, that Vegas has the first overall pick. It seems a fait accompli that they're going to take Fernando Mendoza. There's people out there that don't think he's the number one quarterback. They think he's number 2, that they really like Ty Simpson out of Alabama. Ty Simpson has a much smaller sample size, whereas Mendoza was at Cal and then at Indiana. So he's got a pretty good, sample size as far as starts. He's up in the 30s with starts, whereas Ty Simpson is not. Ty Simpson played on Alabama, but he always was he was the backup for the longest time. As last year to Jalen Milroe. So it's going to be 2 years ago. I'm sorry. It's going to be interesting to see. I don't know that the Raiders are going to come off that pick. I think they'd be hard pressed to come off that pick, really. But they control the draft, and then the draft will move a little bit as you go on. It should be a ton of movement. The Jets are probably going to go defense. Cleveland, you never know what's going to go on. So you have. Let me see who we can get in there. So as you look at the draft currently, the Jets we think are going to take probably defense because I don't think anybody will trade that high to go after a quarterback, and I don't know if there's a player worthy of trying to trade up for that pick. I'm not really sure. So we'll see what they do, and they're followed by, shortly thereafter they're followed by. Let me pull it up here for a second. So they're followed by the Cardinals. The Cardinals are interesting because they don't really have a quarterback, right? So it's going to be interesting to see what the Cardinals do. Do they go for another offensive tackle like the mocks want them to do, or do they do something different? We're not really sure where they're going with that. It'll definitely be interesting, but I don't think the draft jumps a lot right there. I think the next possibility with the draft is most likely the further down you go in the order. So Tennessee's up next. What does Tennessee do? Right? Does Tennessee go for a running back? Do they take Jeremiah Love to more dynamic offense with their Cam Ward, their young quarterback? I think that's a place maybe where the first place where Jeremiah Love might go would be in Tennessee. And 5 with the Giants. The Giants are interesting because it's really hard to see, what they want to do. Do they want to be a team centered around their quarterback, or what do they want to do? Honestly, do they want to? You already have Scadaboo's coming off an injury. Not sure how long he can last in the NFL with his running style with the concussions, but it'll be interesting. Do the Giants, are they the first one to go? They're going to go defense. They're going to go Sonny Styles, or are they going to take an edge rusher? They're pretty set at the edge with their draft last year, taking the kid out of Penn State. So I think the Giants probably will look to linebacker. I don't think they'll look to trade down. They have a pretty healthy number of picks, but I'm looking for them to take Sonny Styles out of Ohio State because it just fits their organization. That's what they need. They've signed. They got Tremaine Edmonds from Chicago. You pair those two together. You already have Sexy Dexy. You have Burns, Carter, and Thibodeau. That's a nice rotation. They might need another piece or two, but they can get that later in the draft. And then you move on to the Cleveland Brownies. The Brownies at 6. So not really sure what the Browns have in mind. I mean, they probably need a quarterback, but they have, a couple quarterbacks in there. Brand new coach in Monken from Baltimore. Let's see what the Brownies are going to do. Do they take a trade out of it? Do they take a wide receiver? Do they get one of the best wide receivers in a Cardinal Tate maybe? I don't think their defense is fairly set. They did lose a linebacker, but I think their defense is fairly set. And there's 3 good wideouts there. You have Tyson out of Arizona State. I mean, you have Cardinal Tate out of Ohio State. We know what he did. And then you got the kid from USC who's supposed to be a burner, and Mekhi Lemon. And don't forget, you also have the kid from Texas A&M who's fast. So, in KC Concepcion, maybe they do that. Maybe they pair him. They go that way. But we're really not sure what they're going to do. And then you get to my team, the team from Washington. This is a pick where I think they can't really go wrong, but they lack picks. So I think this is probably your first trade at number 7. And they always say in the NFL draft, you need a dance partner. And everybody knows that you need a dance partner. But I think with the amount of players on the board at that point, if it falls the way it falls, you have every one of the edge rushers on the board, right? Except for Bailey. So you have Messidor and Bain, and there's a kid out of Texas A&M who's pretty good as well. So do they find a dance partner? Or does somebody want to come up if they're sitting there with Jeremiah Love? Does somebody like the Kansas City want to jump 2 spots and come after him? It's going to be interesting, but I think that's where the draft really, really starts with the trade possibilities. So I think everybody else ahead of Washington is fairly set. Arizona's kind of a wild card, but that's just too high to draft. To draft a quarterback because there's not many in this draft that are worthwhile to be picked that high. There's quarterbacks that can play, but not to be picked that high. After Washington goes, you have the Saints, who surprisingly won, a lot of games. And they need a wideout to go opposite Olave. So do they take a Tyson? Who do they take? Then Kansas City comes up. Kansas City needs offensive line help like there's no tomorrow. Then you have the Bengals. The Bengals need a defense, desperately need a defense. Maybe they go for Mansour Delane. Maybe they go for Caleb Downs if he's there. It'll be interesting. And then you have Miami. Miami needs everything. Miami has decided that they're rebuilding, which is odd because they went out and signed a quarterback in Malik Willis to some pretty good money. So they obviously need everything there. Dallas needs edge rushers. Los Angeles probably looking for a wideout because they settled their defensive back issue. And then you got Baltimore. Baltimore needs offensive linemen. Their center went to the Raiders, and they just need offensive linemen pretty badly. And then you look at the Tampa Bay. Tampa Bay probably needs to shore up their defense. Even though they lost Mike Evans, they still have talent there at wideout with Emeka Buka. I think they're pretty well set there, which is what they should do. But they need help on defense badly. So do they take a Terrell, a McCoy? Terrell is, he's out of Clemson. His brother already plays. AJ Terrell plays for the Ravens. Or do they take a Jeremiah McCoy out of Tennessee? We just don't know. Then you have Detroit. Detroit's going to take an edge rusher, whichever one's left. Maybe Akeem Messidor. but they're taking an edge rusher. They need to. They need to help on that line to take the pressure off of their stud up there. And then you get to Minnesota. Minnesota doesn't know if Harrison Smith is returning or not. They have another guy who's kind of just like Harrison Smith, only younger and much faster, and Dylan Tiedemann out of Oregon. Great pick there for Minnesota if they're able to do it. Then you got Carolina. Carolina needs offensive help. They do. They got to shore up that line. They did lose Dowdell, but I don't really think that's a loss. I mean, he's very inconsistent as a runner. When he's motivated, he runs, but very consistent as a runner. Then we get to the Cowboys. The Cowboys sitting at number 20 probably need a little bit more defensive help since they lost their top corner. He just fizzled out, injury, and then that was it. So maybe they take a Colton Hood out of Tennessee. We just don't know. And then you come up to the Steelers at 21, which are interesting. 21, some people say it's too high for Ty Simpson, but the Steelers are desperate. They need offensive help. They just need it. They need line. They need dynamic backs. They need, a quarterback. I mean, you can do everything you want. They have no idea who's going to be throwing the ball. It's either a 42-year-old or it's, Mason Rudolph being backed up by the 6th-round pick out of Ohio State. So, which everybody is somewhat in love with, but if he had shined, he would have shined. And he just simply didn't in practice, obviously, because he's been on the bench the whole time. After the Steelers, you come up with the Chargers. Chargers need help on the edge. They do. They're old. So they're going to go defense, in my opinion. And then we come to Philly. Philly is interesting because they lost a lot of players. They really, really did. But I think with Lane Johnson and his age, I think they go offensive line. And maybe it's the kid out of Clemson, Blake Miller, the offensive tackle, but they definitely need help on the line. And then we're back right again. Here we are back again with the Brownies. So depending on what the Brownies do there will have a huge impact. I know that's an obvious statement. It'll have a huge impact on what they do at number 24. If they're able to solidify at number 1 and get a really good player, then you come back and you rebuild their line. Batoni is gone. The couple other they lost. So, maybe they take the kid out of Utah, the massive tackle, and Caleb Lomo. Maybe they take him. We don't know. So then we get to the Bears. The Bears are trying to repeat and trying to win. They're in win-now mode. So the Bears lost their safety, Brisker, to free agency. He went to Pittsburgh. He's a local kid, but he went to Pittsburgh to give them some safety help. So do they go for a safety from Toledo? Big kid, 6'2", really fluid and dynamic. Do they go there, or do they go on offense and pick, another offensive player? Or here's a shout out: is 25 where AJ Brown goes? I know Philly fans will be in love if they get this high of a pick for AJ Brown, but is this where AJ Brown goes? Does he go here and Chicago sends over the 25th pick? Because if you pair him there, with the wideouts they already have and the tight ends they already have, you're looking at a pretty darn good team in Chicago. So maybe that's where he goes. We just don't know yet. Get to Buffalo. Buffalo, their biggest problem is defense. They need linebackers. They need corners, safeties. They're old and injured everywhere. So maybe they take a Georgia linebacker. Not too difficult to pick from the SEC. They always have speed at the linebacker position. So maybe CJ Allen. He looks like a downhill guy, plays a little violent. So we'll see. Next team up, you get to the Niners, who unbelievably won 12 games, even though their entire team was out with injury. They just had a scab team there. But they need pretty much everything. And this is where you get the edge from A&M. I kept pumping Cassius Howe. A little raw, 6'4", probably 245, 250. Him opposite Bosa. Maybe they signed Bosa's brother. They have a little bit of money. So, we'll see. Bryce Huff, he just quit. He said, that's it, I'm done, and retired. So they need somebody. So that's going to be interesting. And then we come to the Texans. Texans have a world-class defense. I don't think anybody can deny that. The Texans are in trouble on offense. They need a playmaker to do something at wide receiver because they are not healthy at wide receiver. So what do? I mean, it's kind of interesting because their quarterback, he's due his fifth-year option, which is due on May 1st. Do they pick that fifth-year option up? I mean, it's going to be costly for a quarterback. Don't know the exact number, but it'll be costly. So then we jump back and we get to Kansas City, who has an extra first-round pick from the Rams for the trade for McDuffie. So here, is this the time now? They just signed Kelsey to that 3-year deal. Mahomes has got the ACL. Is this where they pick up and try to replace him? I mean, there's a dynamic tight end out of Oregon, Kenyon Sadiq, who's excellent. Is this the time? Do they pair him with Kelsey and they play for 2 years together? He learns from Kelsey, and then he carries the torch thereafter. I don't know. I mean, their defense is not the best. Their O-line's not the best. So we'll see. I mean, it might be too rich to take a tight end there. for a team that needs help in the trenches. But again, we'll see. It's going to be hard to pass up Kenyon Sadiq with how much they use the tight end in that system. Up next, we have the Dolphins with their second pick. Again, the Dolphins need everything and anything. If I'm the Dolphins and I'm rebuilding, I'm going from inside out. I'm not worrying about the flash players. I'm not worrying about that. I'm going from inside out. I'm building that defensive line and I'm building that offensive line. You have a quarterback in Malik Willis who's mobile, but that's what I'm looking to do in Miami if I'm truly rebuilding, which it looks like they are. And then we come up and we have New England, right? What does New England do with their defense? They held up well in Seattle, but again, the offense didn't possess the ball enough, so that the time of possession was complete. Out of the balance wasn't there at all. So they were on the field way too many times. So is their defense good? I think they are. Do they add an edge rusher, or does AJ Brown go here? Do you send a 31st pick to the Philadelphia Eagles for AJ Brown and maybe swap some 6s and 7s? But that's another possibility. Those two places I think are probably the best places for AJ Brown to look to be traded for number one if people deem him worthy. And then we finish out with the Seattle Seahawks, who lost Reek Woolen to the Eagles. He went there on a one-year deal. Do they go corner here? Lots of corners left. You have Brandon Cisse out of South Carolina. He looks like he can play. He's SEC, so he's got speed. So it'll be interesting to see what Seattle does. I don't think they need wideout help. Their running backs are coming back. Charbonnet will be back, and they have a platoon of running backs that should carry them that way. But that's the first round. It'll be interesting to see. My money on AJ Brown is at 25 and or 31 if he's worthy of a 1. If not, I have no idea where he goes. And then does he just remain sullen and stay in Philly? I don't know. I'm not a Philly fan. We got a question from Michael. Michael, in the draft as a team, do you go for a young kid that can start straight away or someone you can build on and sit him down for the future? That's a great question, Michael. I think it depends on position, right? So if it's quarterback, the problem with quarterback is the maturation process is whack right now. And what I mean by whack is some players come in with lots of starts and they're ready to go. Other players come in with lots of starts and they can't play yet. You have players that come in with few starts, like a Drake May, and he looks like an all-star. He looks like a Pro Bowl player. So it's so hard to judge, especially at that position. Other positions, if you're a loaded team and you're able to draft out of luxury and you don't have to worry about positional drafts, then you take whoever you can take and you get that quote-unquote best athlete. But I think quarterback, the whole process, the whole maturation process has been butchered. And it's not has anything to do with the coaching. Some of it's coaching, but some of it's players coming in and having success. Look at Ben Roethlisberger, came in and had great success in his first year. And that throws everything off because they look for where's the Ben Roethlisberger. You fast forward to Mahomes, who sat a year in Kansas City behind Alex Smith, came out the next year and was just an absolute stud, right? And everybody's looking for the next Patrick Mahomes. And you fast forward, you see Stroud had a really good first year, and then you look at Washington with Jaden Daniels. First year, took him to the NFC Championship game. So I think those are the exceptions that prove the rule that you do have to sit people. And then you look at the gold standard quarterbacks, which is Green Bay, right? Who had Favre, replaced him with Aaron Rodgers, replaced him with Love. And their process seems to work. If you could have those three players together, that's an amazing process, in my opinion. So I think it depends on the position. But like you look at Kansas City, if they can get a Kenyon Sadiq and they think they can afford to take that as opposed to a player in the trenches, then that's perfect for them because they're gonna he's not going to be the number one target, but he's going to learn from a future Hall of Famer and one of the ultimate pros. So we'll see how that all works out. But that's a great question, Michael. All right, we're going to move on. We're going to do a little analysis of the NFC East, right? So in the East, this is it definitely is the best division in all of football. It's the division that has the most NFL championship appearances and the most NFL championships. And I say championships, NFL championships, because the league did exist before the Super Bowl era. It did. I hate to tell everybody, but it did exist, right? So they are the gold standard in a division. Every single team in the division has won multiple Super Bowls, right? Multiple. You look at Philly, they have 2. Washington has 3. The Giants have 4, and Dallas has 5. And they have the most appearances. And New York has tons of NFL championships as well, right? The greatest game ever played against the Colts. We saw all that stuff, right? So it's interesting division. It's not been the beast that it used to be. This used to be the gold standard. If you look from the Giants, right, in the 90s, it went 90 the Giants, 91 the Redskins at the time, 92 was the Cowboys, 93 was the Cowboys, a break for San Francisco in 95 when the lefty finally got his championship, and they came back with the Cowboys, right? So it was dominated by that, and really, truly, most of the '80s as well was dominated with NFC East teams, and then Dallas won 2, and they were in 4 in the '70s. So, it's been interesting. Dallas, who knows if they'll ever win? They have more money than sense right now because their owner doesn't needs to relinquish control and just sit back and relax. He's 83 years old. If he doesn't relax and let some of that control go and allow other people to have a voice, it's going to be hard for them to do anything before he unfortunately leaves this earth. And I maybe he's cognizant of it. I don't know. It's interesting to see if he has any rational thoughts there as far as letting go of that control. So if we look at the teams the way they were last year, obviously, the Giants, they were down there at the bottom, followed by Washington, followed by Dallas, followed by Philadelphia, who did not do anything in the playoffs because the 49ers came in with their mash unit and just smoked them. I think that's more the disorganization they have on offense. So, we'll get to that in a second. But you look at the Giants; they made a bunch of off-season signings. They did really well. They didn't really miss any. They didn't miss anybody. As far as loss, but they did well. They still have money under the cap. Well, not that much. They have $4 million, but they added some nice pieces. Right, brand new coach, one of the best coaches in the NFL history. I love the Harbaugh brothers. All they do is win, and their discipline is a unique discipline because everybody buys into it, which is unheard of in this day and age. So they added a tight end. Obviously, he had players follow him over from Baltimore. Isaiah Likely, the punter, followed as well. But I think they did I'd give them a solid B in the offseason. They addressed some of the stuff they need. They really have to have a good draft here. They need to protect their young quarterback, and hopefully he doesn't run around like an idiot and he learns how to slide, because that's the way you survive in the NFL. You slide. You live to play the next play. You don't give your body up on a 3rd and 2 in the middle of the second quarter when the score's tied 0-0. That's not the time to give your body up. You save that until you get to the end of the game. But it's hard to control players who play that way because that's just the way they're built and that's the way they're born. So I think they did a good job. As far as their first round, me personally, if I were the Giants GM, I would go for Sonny Styles. He brings speed at linebacker. You have all those big boys up front, clog in the middle. You just got, you signed Tremaine Edmonds out of Buffalo first. Actually, Virginia Tech, Buffalo, Chicago, and now in the Giants. He can be the tutor for a young Sonny Styles whose measurables are off the chart. The guy is a freak of an athlete with pads or without pads. So I think that's where the Giants go. And I think their defense improves. Not significantly, but I think they do improve. You add that kind of speed, you add that kind of, know-how up the middle, it's going to be, it's going to be good for them. And I think they, as they go on in the draft, I would secure my line and I would add linemen. And, you're going to need another weapon or two for your quarterback. So, Jackson Dart looks good, but I think you still need to give weapons. Every young quarterback needs a weapon. He now has a tight end. That's excellent. So that's going to aid them tremendously. But overall, I thought the Giants did well. They have the coach, which is really what matters. I thought, initially when his brother Jim Harbaugh came out, I thought, maybe Washington would get him instead of Dan Quinn, because him and his brother, they'd be an opposite. One would be in the AFC, one would be the NFC, and they'd be 90 miles apart. I thought that was a marriage made in heaven, but it didn't work out, so that's okay. But I think the Giants did well in the offseason. I think they showed themselves fairly well. I really do. I think they're going to do. It's going to be a tougher division. I think they're going to be competitive. They can keep their quarterback healthy, keep their running back healthy. I think they've got something going there in New York. Will they win the division? Who knows? The Eagles won it twice in a row, which is rare for that division. So we'll see. Time will tell. We'll see how it goes. Now we move to Washington. Washington had a sneaky good offseason. They really did. They addressed what they needed to address, which was their terrible defense. And I mean terrible defense. They were old and slow. So they went out and they got, Chenal from Kansas City, who I think is going to be excellent in the middle for them. And they went out and got defensive back help. They got safety help. They got line help. They got Caleb Chesson from LSU to New England, or Jacksonville first, then New England. And now he's in Washington on a 1-year deal. So they have a lot of prove-it deals on defense, which helps with their cap as well. They still have $50.4 million to spend, available. Only $11 million for the draft, but they're sitting good with the way that it is. And it adds tons of money to the draft next year with these 1-year deals. We'll see if Jalen can stay healthy and rebound. And, they got a nice piece out of Oregon last year, an lineman. So, again, build from the inside out. A lot of these mocks show Caleb Downs or Jeremiah Love. I think that's a luxury pick. I really do. A team that's short of picks, I think they really need to pressure hard and get extra picks. You need extra picks. They're not a team that's one pick away from the Super Bowl. They've got a lot of holes to fill, not only on offense and defense, but they need depth. So if I'm there, I'm sitting there at 7. If I find anybody that will, entertain as far as a trade, I'm going to do it because I don't have a second-round pick because of Laramie Tunsil trade last year with Houston. So I need picks. So that's what I look for. So they have a lot of health issues. They can stay healthy. They're going to be competitive because number 5 is an otherworldly athlete, but he's always been on the leaner side. If he's able to put on weight, maintain his agility, flexibility, I think they're going to do well. Again, they're going to contend, but there's two of the big boys are coming up. So next we get to Dallas. Dallas did okay. I mean, Washington's great in the offseason. I'd give them a B+. Giants get a B. I give Washington a B+ because I think they addressed most of their needs on defense. That's not going to deter them from drafting defensive players, but they did well in positioning themselves to have flexibility in the draft, to move up and down and gain extra picks, which I think was smart on their part. And the way they designed the contracts is also a good deal. So next up we have Dallas. Dallas was okay in the offseason. Not a lot of wow to what they did, but they retained, Pickens. I'm not sure how they're going to afford him because that's a lot of money to have in 2 wide receivers. And you can see how well that went with T. Higgins and Jamar Chase in Cincinnati. They don't have a defense because of that, right? They got 2 outstanding wide receivers, but no defense. Dallas sits with about $16.1 million in cap space. Not bad at all, but I think Dallas and their picks, they got the extra pick from Green Bay, but I think they traded they went for Rashawn Gary as well. So they the pick there is also interesting because Dallas, they sit right now at 12-20, right? Again, with the Cowboys, offensive line is doing well. I might look, if I have 12-20, I need a dynamic running back to aid to that offense. So if Cleveland gets there at 6, looks like they might pull the trigger on a running back, which I don't think they will because they got Junkins last year, and he's a fabulous runner. But, it's very rare that you trade in division. So if Washington got 12-20, I'd be ecstatic. But it's very rare that you trade in division, So Dallas needs a running back. Not a lot of running backs out there. Love is the prime piece. He is the standard right now because his measurables are off the board, and the guy's just a hell of a runner. So if I were Dallas, maybe I try there. Maybe I try Cleveland, see if they want to play. Maybe you get Cleveland's got that extra pick at 24. So I don't know, but Dallas definitely needs a running back because their running backs are subpar. Defensively, they still need depth and help. They upgraded their defensive line a little bit. Once you lost Micah, he's kind of irreplaceable. Not a lot of players are, but he truly, for Dallas, is. He was so dominant on that defense. He made that defense so much better just with the pressure he was able to add. And that's why me, as a if I were a general manager, and I believe this as a fan and a pseudo analyst, you have to build from the inside out. If your defensive line is fabulous, you don't have to get the top-notch corners and top-notch linebackers because the time is reduced to pass. It's a timing league. If your quarterback's getting rid of the ball in 2.3 seconds, and my rush is getting there in 2.2, that matters, right? That means everybody, is not going to get paid. But if you have that constant pressure, that's what makes your back end so much better, right? The 4 to 5 you put up front, if they're dominant, that makes the 6 or 7 you drop so much easier because they don't have to cover for that long. And conversely, on offense, their quarterback's up there. He's 33, 34. He had a major injury with his hamstring tear. So they have to be able to protect him as well. He's mobile to a point, but he does have he does get into the turnover-itis a little bit, and they always come out at the complete wrong times. He'll be perfect. And that one throw where you can't make a mistake, Dak comes up and makes that mistake. Got a little turmoil also in his personal life, so we'll see if that matters at all. But Dallas, I give them a C+ in their offseason, and I think that they really should take those picks and build from the inside out. That's the only way you're going to get better. There's a bunch of rush ends out there. There's a bunch of D tackles out there. There's big road grading, beef-eating, defensive tackles. So I think they're going to be well set if they do that. Still, what did Michael said? Still not sure with Dak and the boys. Yeah, that's true. You're absolutely right, Michael. Neither am I, because of his age and because of the way they run things there. I'd be shocked if I wouldn't be shocked, but I mean, eventually they're going to have to replace him too. He's coming on. He's going to be 34 this year. It's unbelievable what he is. So that they're going to have that to deal with. So maybe in the later rounds, they look for, maybe a Cade Klubnik from Clemson, who I still think knows how to play quarterback. And the other guys Simpson and Nussmeier are really good athletes. So is Cade Klubnik, but Nussmeier can really throw. Simpson can really throw. Cade needs to work on his throwing, but he is a hell of an athlete. I mean, he truly is, watching him play in the ACC over the years. So I think there's some sneaky good quarterback pickups down there. Maybe you get a Beck, who showed what he can do in the SEC and the ACC. So, maybe you get something like that. But Dallas is going to have to replace Dak here shortly. Trey Lance was the backup, and he went to San Diego, and he re-upped with them. So it'll be again interesting. And then we come to the team that won the division with the most turmoil I've ever seen on a team that wins is the Eagles. They are the most dysfunctional family I think I've ever seen. And I know Mike, the producer, he's a fan, but man, are they just dysfunctional. They truly put the fun back in dysfunctional. They had a lot. They lost a lot.
Yeah. I heard you talking about my Birds. I got to come in and agree.
Come on, buddy.
Yeah, they put the D in dysfunctional. But you know what? The one thing you got to give Howie Roseman credit, man. They find a way to kind of glue that together. We kind of
you lost a lot on defense this year in free agency.
Yeah, but you know what though? There's guys that are waiting right behind them to really kind of take their place. I mean, I love Nakobe Dean. I thought Nakobe Dean had a great season last year. But you know what? Nakobe Dean can't stay healthy.
Yep.
His 4 years here, the first two, he was out, and he had so the way they looked at it was they drafted Jahai Campbell for that reason.
Right.
And I love the fact of what they did as far as safety wise. They brought back Epps. They just re-signed him. To pair him with Makuba, who's coming back off an injury. Then, if you're looking really at their defensive backs, they still have Michael Carter, who's a veteran. They signed the guy Johnson from Washington.
And they got Reek Woolen.
Okay, to pair along with DeJean and Quinyon Mitchell. So I mean, I'm real stoked. The only thing
that's not the defense, though. I think it's on the other side of the ball.
Well, that's what it is. And, I kind of looked at what Jalen said going into last year when, Patullo took over to really kind of what he said going this year after seeing Sean Mannion's offense.
Right.
Like our guy, Matty B here, actually, he does his show, which will be airing tonight, The Final Word, but he'll turn around. He actually made a bet with one of his listeners, Joe Hale. Joe Hale believes that AJ Brown's going to be here week one, and if he is here week one, Matty said he will let him host his show for that week. So in a way, I want to see AJ Brown still here.
What do you think about 25 to the Bears and 31 to the Patriots?
There's a dark horse in this. And, the Rams. The Rams are a dark horse. They were one of the teams that were really, really interested in A.J. Brown. They just
got Puka and
Devontae Adams, I know. Well, Devontae Adams was actually a part of that trade.
Right.
It was Devontae Adams coming back to the Eagles.
Right.
For A.J. Brown. They just couldn't get the picks right. But, I don't see a fit in Chicago.
Why not?
I don't. I think
he's their best receiver right off the bat.
Well, yeah, he would be, but you know what? DJ Moore was their best receiver too, and they literally turned it over to.
They got Roma Dunze, and they got
Dunze, and then they got the other kid, the Luther.
Yeah. Oh, Luther Burton's good out of
Luther Burton, right? Yeah. So good. I think they're going to kind of go with them guys. And kind of bring them all three along together. They got a taste of the postseason.
There's no better pick than the 25th pick than picking A.J. Brown. Are you kidding me? Him, Roma Dunze, the tight end, and Luther Burton in the slot. Holy Lord!
Yeah. Oh yeah. Listen, that would be crazy. It really would be.
Now that Caleb knows how to throw the football again, that would just be nasty. Nasty.
It would. I mean, it makes sense. I think it makes sense for both of those teams.
Yeah.
If you really look at it, because it definitely New England definitely leads the number one now.
Right.
They're letting go of Stephon Diggs.
Yeah.
He's going to end up somewhere else. Which, by the way, I'm hearing he may end up in Dallas, or not Dallas. Where'd his brother go?
He's out of a job right now.
I thought he signed. I thought he hooked on somewhere.
Briefly, but he's out of a job right now.
No, I know he was. Yeah, but
he went to Green Bay. I thought.
Well, he went there on the trade, but he was also a free agent at the end of the year.
Yeah,
so
he hasn't been signed yet.
Oh, I thought he was, but they were talking about him and his brother linking up and playing somewhere. But again, I'm interested to see now. With the Birds, I made a suggestion to Al on our show on Sunday morning that I said to Al, I said I would take those picks from the AJ Brown trade. Okay. And here's the thing. I think they can get more for him. A lot of reports were that it was a first and a third. Well, you just saw Jalen Waddle go to the Broncos for a first, a third, and a fourth. So if you're able
to get younger,
Yeah, but AJ Brown's better. So he's the more proven commodity in my eyes. So I mean, he definitely is. Like Jalen Waddle's probably top 15. AJ Brown's top 7 in the league. So, I mean, if you're going to offload one of the top 7 wide receivers, you should get that. Anyway, I said what they should do is take those picks. Also, Tanner McKee is probably going to get traded. You don't go out and make a trade for Andy Dalton,
right?
If you're not going to trade Tanner McKee, only because they're not bringing Andy Dalton here to be the third string.
Nope.
Dalton's not coming here to run that, and they already lost. What the hell was the kid's name? The old North Carolina quarterback, Sam
Howell. Yeah,
Sam Howell. He was our He was our number 3. He left.
Yep.
So with him leaving, like I said, I think Tanner McKee's probably going to be leaving, and I would like to see them take all those draft picks and make a call to the Minnesota Vikings and offer that for Justin Jefferson.
They would never do that. They've got Kyler Murray coming to town.
Oh, they got Carson Wentz coming back to town too. They still don't have a quarterback.
I don't know. The way I look at it, you got 4 rehab centers in the country for quarterbacks. You got LA, you've got Green Bay, you've got San Francisco, and you got Minnesota. So he's at a rehab. If Kyler Murray is not rehab there, his career's over. But I think he's going to be electric on that turf, man. I really do. I look for them to be a dark horse to go forward because their defense is solid. If he can do anything, because I don't know what they saw in McCarthy. What did you think they saw in him?
I'm still wondering about that pick. I watch Big Ten football, man.
I know. Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Big Ten. When I seen they picked him, I was like, did they see something I didn't? Because
the game against Penn State where he couldn't throw the ball and they ran it 7,000 times.
Yeah, exactly. And I don't know. I never understood that, but again, that's their issue. I'm just hoping the Birds make that trade for their defensive end, Gennard, because that's looking more and more real possible as the reports I'm seeing out of here.
Yeah, but the Eagles need that firepower.
They do. They do. But all right, man, I just had to pop on and talk this over with you because of what we're hearing here in Philly about what they might do. Also, that Kenyon Sadiq, do not rule out the Birds taking him either with the 23rd pick.
Goddard just signed.
What's that? I know he did, but it's only a 1-year deal. It's only a 1-year deal. So they only they kind of kicked the can down a little bit. So don't be surprised if they do. I think if it's not him, they're in love with the offensive lineman from Penn State. Yeah. I cannot pronounce his name. Igawala, I think it was, or something.
Guard.
Yes, they're in love with him. So I think it's either going to be either Sadiq, the kid from Penn State, or you can type in the kid Proctor from Alabama. Yeah. I think it's going to be one of those 3 that go.
Well, I mean, you have to with Lane Johnson's age. You just have to.
Listen, I think we have a guy on the team now, Kid Hinton, who played out of Michigan.
Yeah, I remember him.
He hurt his back last year, so that's why he was kind of shelved for the year. But I really like his measurables, man. He's like 6'7", 330, and he's quick, and he's really good. Not only good at pass defense, he's also really good at run blocking. So I just hope he can stay healthy. If he can stay healthy, you might already have Lane Johnson the reason I'm kind of more wanting the kid from Penn State to guard is Landon Dickerson kind of took his contract and moved up. I think he's going to give 2 more years and then bow out.
He's got so many injuries, for the love of God.
Yeah, well, he came banged up. So,
yeah.
I mean, for him, but yeah, you're going to have to start looking for him. And I'm not sold on Tyler Steen either.
No,
I don't like Tyler Steen at all. So
here's a big question for you. Who do you think takes the division? I'm not sold on the Cowboys. I'm sold on, I think, Harbaugh, and I think if Jaden Daniels comes back to what he was, I think I think Cowboys might finish last.
I'm in agreement with you. I am in agreement with you. I mean, granted, the Cowboys got a great offense. Yeah. But I will say this. They did take the Eagles defensive back coach, Christian Parker. That's their new defensive coordinator.
Right.
So I think you may see I think you might see them get better, but I think they just lost too much. They're going to have to really, really get in there and draft some people. They're going to have to draft edges because they got some good defensive tackles. I mean, they got Quentin what's his name? Quentin Williams from the Jets last year. And then they also got Kenny Clark. Yeah. So, I mean, they still have those 2 guys. They just got to get people on the outskirts.
Yeah.
You might see them probably try to bring back a guy like Clowney.
Yeah, on a 1-year deal.
On a 1-year deal. And Dante Fowler, if he's available, I know he likes to bounce back and forth.
He loves to do that, yeah.
So, I mean, you may see them try to sign those type of guys, but I think you're right, though, on that. And I do. I think the Cowboys finished last. Believe it or not, I think there's a really good battle for second place in the division between Washington and New York. I still think the Eagles are the class of the division. I think they got the better.
The only thing wrong with the Eagles is the offense.
And if they can get that offense fixed, man. Yeah. And I like the sneaky – this was a sneaky signing by Howie Roseman, too, getting Dameon Pierce.
Yeah.
I think that's a real sneaky signing because now you're looking at a backfield really with, Barkley, Tank Bigsby, Dameon Pierce, along with Will Shipley.
Right. I just think they're dysfunctional. He doesn't like to throw the ball that for whatever reason. I don't know why.
I don't know if it's the quarterback or if it was what.
Well, Devontae Smith is not. I mean, the kid still weighs 105 pounds. He never really put on weight. He's not the
bad boy though.
But he's not the biggest. I mean, he's not running those routes across the middle because he's going to get his clock cleaned. I just think that AJ Brown just doesn't work on the team anymore. You got to get. I mean, if they got Kenyon Sadiq and you ran a 2 tight end offense, it doesn't matter if you put the other wide out.
Right, the way this Sean Mannion offense is supposed to be, it's supposed to be a West Coast under center. So why not throw another tight end in there? That's why, if you're really looking, I kind of think it's either going to be the kid from Penn State or it's either going to be Proctor from Alabama, the kid from Penn State, or Sadiq. It's going to be one of those 3, unless they get blown off by if you get the
25th, if you get the 25th and 31st pick, you're trading Brown. There's no doubt about it, right?
Oh, I would hope so, but I think that $40 million cap hit is what's holding them back from trading them. If it's before
maybe they can turn it into a signing bonus and spread it out for dead cap.
If they could, they would have done that already.
Well, they don't know if they're going to keep him.
Right.
So if you go to a team and say, we'll eat, if you're the Eagles, we'll eat, say, $10 million of it because they can just make that a bonus and just,
Right. Well, I mean, like I said, there was the show The Speakeasy.
Yeah.
They were talking about him, and he was just kind of like, "Hey, man, can't y'all just talk about somebody else for right now?"
Well, it's the reason why you can't win. There's something going on there.
Yeah, I don't know. From what was being said around here, it was something personal between him and Jalen.
I believe it is,
and it kind of affected it on there. So you never know. It's just as quick as they got into something, they could easily squash it.
I just don't think he has because Jalen Hurts is not a rah-rah person. He's just not.
No.
He lets us play do the talking, and I think Brown wants him to be more like that, and he's never going to be like that.
I don't know, man. Like I said, we all have best friends. We all argue with our best friends from time to time. Absolutely. It happens. So, I mean, hopefully they can get in there. But Ed, I'm going to let you continue on, man. Thank you for letting me jump on.
Always, brother. Glad to have you. So we had a visit from our producer as we talked about the Dirty Birds. Well, that's really the Falcons, but I tend to agree. I think it's going to be Dallas. Dallas' defense. I mean, they could score 45 points if they want, but their defense is going to get up to 55. So I think they need to address that. I think overall the division is going to be better than it was last year. I think you're going to be extremely competitive. I look for the Giants to be, he can just coach. Harbaugh can coach. I think that's a great steal for them. I really do. He's not going to be bothered by the quote unquote New York media, who are so overrated anyway. What are they going to do? Abuse you somehow? They know. They can talk smart, whatever they want. There's just this whole mystical New York media thing is always bizarre. Well, wait till they get to New York and have that media. It's just more people. That's all it is. It's not anything different. That's why New York always boggles my mind with that. But so the NFC East, we'll just wrap it up. I think last year it finished Philadelphia, Dallas, Washington, New York. Would it surprise me if it finished that again? It would not. I mean, I hope my team can do something, but it wouldn't surprise me if it finished like that. I just look for the Eagles to take a step back. But are the other three teams strong enough to take a step forward? It's to be determined. It depends on how the draft goes. If the Cowboys are able to get a Jeremiah Love, that offense is going to be, because they'll be able to control the ball, right? So the time of possession is going to be lopsided every time you play them, but they can control. They get a dynamic running back like that. It's almost when they had Elliott. So it'll be definitely an interesting year for the NFC East, because it's going to be rough and tumble. And I think every team got better. Philly on their defense, Blankenship was a loss. Dean was hurt all the time. They didn't miss a beat with losing Milton last year. But I just think that their biggest problem is the offense. Somehow they got to get that AJ Brown, get him out, or get him ready is what they have to do, really. But that's the NFC East. Next week we'll talk a little bit more about college, because we'll have some pro days. We'll have some. I think the spring games are mostly in April, so we'll have that to talk about a little bit. And next week we did the AFC East, NFC East. Next week we'll move and we'll just go in the order that we want. So we'll go north, south, west. So next week will be AFC North and NFC North, and we'll talk those teams and see how that rolls out. But thank you for watching. Thank you for the comments. Special shout out to Mike for producing the show. I think we'll be full on next Tuesday. But if not, I'm just going to start getting Mike on the show. Because
guess what? I got one comment for you. It's from my former partner, Pat Bernard. He says, I think the Giants take a major step forward with Harbaugh at the helm. I think he's
agree,
right.
Man.
It's hard for me to say that, because I loathe the Giants. I can't stand the Giants.
Okay.
But again, I want to ask you real quick, draft wise. Do you think that there's any way that Mendoza doesn't go number one?
It's funny you say that, because I've been reading a ton about it. It's weird. They're very quiet. The Raiders are really quiet right now about that. So, how do you think he projects to the NFL?
I don't think he projects well.
I don't either. I don't want to say it out loud, but I don't either.
Like, I think they've had their fair share of kind of quarterbacks, and
right.
I'm really not sure about that. I mean, I heard you talking a lot of draft. That's why I wanted to kind of bring it up too, because I've been really now starting to prep for our draft. But I've been seeing a lot of mocks where he was not being taken first.
I know.
And they were taking the kid. They were taking. I didn't see Simpson go that high, but there was somebody else that went really high in that, and I was like, "Who is this dude?" Like, I didn't even hear about this. So I think the kid from Oregon too, not coming out too. I think that
was huge.
That was huge for him. I think why people are talking about Mendoza, because the kid from Oregon would have came out, he would have been your overall number one. I think.
No doubt about it. He's more dynamic. He's slight of frame, but he's another one that needs a little bit more weight.
All right, we got to pay the bills here. So
all right, I'm gonna get this last comment in here real quick.
All right, we're going to do that, and then just real quick, the final word with Matty B tonight. That's right. He returns back to his time of 10 o'clock. So be on here. Matty will do his card of the day, this day in Philadelphia sports history, and all the other goofiness that goes along with our boy Matty B. And yes, let's get this last comment in here. This is from Michael.
Michael said, over here in the UK, we have the Union Jack college game coming to London and Wembley Stadium. Arizona State versus Kansas. Going to try to get a ticket. Arizona State, Kansas. It's going to be a good game. Arizona State always does well. It's going to be an interesting college football year. Michael, always thank you for joining us from the UK. Billy and I still have to start stoppage time up again. It's been a little crazy over here with all the military stuff and all the retirements we've been doing, but look forward to that. Thank you again to Mike, and lights out buttons. That's all.
All right, guys. Have a good night.